Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Molly,
I'm Michael.
and today we're so excited to be talking about Survivor 48 premiere. We're recording this right now on Wednesday, right after we watch this premiere, so it's still very fresh in our minds, and we're just so excited for another Survivor season. So, Michael, what were your thoughts overall on this premiere?
I thought it was a really good it brought out a lot of emotions in me. I felt like really, I don't know, I felt like almost cried at certain points. It was really suspenseful at certain points. I really for a first episode with a brand new cast, I really felt invested by the end of the episode. And I don't know, maybe that was because like we did a draft of them and I felt like I watched more preseason coverage than I generally do. So I felt like I went into this episode already a little bit more invested in them. But even if I hadn't done that, I still think I would have really enjoyed this premiere.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we got to see a lot of different people as well, which I feel like maybe
Hmm.
sometimes earlier on in the episodes, we don't always get to see as many stories being shown, like right in the get go. I feel like we got a good sense of who each and every one of these castaways were. At least I felt that way from watching it also, because I think maybe what you're saying is like we actually kind of knew who they were going into this, and maybe that's giving us a little bit of a different view on it, but it was really enjoyable to see just all the characters actually in the show together.
Yeah, no, and I think the 2 hour premiere really helps with that. Like it's kind of I can't remember when the last time we had like a 1 hour premiere was, but I really would be interested to like go back and watch that and
Yeah.
like compare it to this because I really feel like I can't even imagine not having a 2 hour or at least a 90-minute premiere at this point because yeah, like you said, we would not have gotten to know probably half of these people and like we did, and that really helps in order for me to feel invested in a cast. And especially like I feel like we even got a pretty good idea of where the tribe dynamics were for the tribes that didn't go to tribal this episode, and that used to not really be the case. Like if there was a tribe that wasn't going to tribal for a few weeks, by episode 4 or 5 it was like, okay, I know there's another tribe or two that are competing on this season, but I have no idea what's going on there, and we really wouldn't know until the first time we actually saw them go to tribal. And maybe we still really don't, and they might not even really know what their dynamics are truly until they are tested in that way. But I do feel like we got a good sense of like, okay, this is who's getting along with who, this is who kind of would target if they were to go to tribal, probably. Like I feel like we got a pretty good sense of that for all three tribes, which is really great for just the first episode.
I know. It's like, what more are we gonna get throughout the season? If this is what we're getting in the first episode, like I hope this is a good trajectory that like even getting to know them even further.
I hope so too. I think that this, and I feel like we said this in the draft, like this is a cast of characters. This is not necessarily, I don't know, and I still feel this way probably, that this isn't going to be like the most strategic season of all time. That I think 47 was a much more strategic season just because you had a lot more super fans. This time you don't have as many super fans, but you have a lot of characters. And I feel like that's just going to be really fun. Like, I feel like if I'm going to predict kind of the vibe of this season, I think it's just going to be fun and messy, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, I am too. So we'll have to see how that continues. But let's get back to talking about this premiere itself. Is we start out with seeing the challenge, the marooning challenge. So tribe members have multiple sets of things they have to accomplish here, but overall, Lagi wins. So the purple tribe wins that, and then the two losing tribes have to go and pick one person to go on a journey, and they have to compete to get camp supplies. So Kevin is chosen from the Vula tribe or the Green tribe, and then Kyle is chosen for Siva or the Orange tribe. And there they have to compete against each other, basically just picking a path and getting a rope to get this machete and then filling it up with water. And it was actually kind of interesting. I felt like watching this challenge. Like, I feel like a lot of the times when they go to a journey, like they're not competing against each other. I don't know if there's a history to that, if there ever has been like the real, just the two people competing against each other. I don't from my knowledge, I don't think there has.
Last season did.
Oh,
It was very it's similar. It was a different challenge. Remember
yeah.
they had to go in the it was Asia and
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember who she was competing against there. But she remember like they had to figure out that they had to go into the like deep into the water and
That's
grab
true.
something in there and Asia didn't realize that at first and so she ended up losing that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was it was a similar concept.
Similar concept, but, like, this one I felt like was closer because you could see them see each other too. Because I feel like in the editing with
Mhm.
the Asia one, you couldn't really tell, like, where they were in the moment.
Right. Like,
Yeah,
she kinda got lost in the jungle, like, couldn't find her way back
yeah,
to find the last whatever they had to get.
yeah.
But
So, overall, I support this version of the challenge of this better.
and I
Um,
thought it was cool, like, because they were actually, like, get each of the supplies that they were gonna be bringing back. Like,
yeah,
first they had to secure the machete that they were gonna bring back, then they had to get the pot, and then they had to unlock the flint. So, it was kinda like each part of the challenge represented the 3 items that they were gonna be bringing back to camp, and then the loser had to leave them all there. So, I liked that aspect of it because it felt like each part of it made sense in that way.
yeah. And it did feel close to, which I also think made it exciting. Because at the end there, the only real deciding factor was when Kyle broke his water jug by accident by hitting it, which like I felt bad for him in that moment. I was like, wow, like just because the glass breaks, he's losing his chance here. But he was so nice to help out Kevin to finish up his water jug there. So I thought that was kind of the wholesome moment as well as to see in this episode.
It really was, yeah. I mean that shows who Kyle is as a person to be willing to help out. I mean, obviously you know, he did that once he didn't have a chance of winning anymore.
Yeah.
But to know that Kevin was injured from the challenge and that it was going to probably take him a while to complete that if he didn't help him and I think that look, I mean, not only was he being a good person by doing that, and I don't know if this was part of his strategy at all, but let's say they both make it to the merge, and then that's kind of a bond that they built there by working together to complete that challenge. Versus if Kyle just kind of sat there and watched him, that bond probably wouldn't be there at all. But because that's something that Kevin can remember, and they can use that later on if they both end up on the same camp together.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely felt like that was like, "Oh, we can be an alliance together in the future." So, we'll have to
Yeah.
see if that actually happens, but maybe it'll start from the
Yeah.
water jug.
And that's when the journey works to me,
Yeah.
is when it ends up affecting the game in that way later on. You build those bonds with people from the other tribes that you go on the journey with, and sometimes it ends up having an effect, sometimes it doesn't. But I think that the moments like this are when it actually could work and end up influencing the game beyond just that moment. So I hope it does. I really do, because I think that's such a interesting bonding moment, unique moment that they had together. That I do hope that ends up coming into play later on.
Yeah, for sure. So next let's get into more just the tribe dynamics overall. So we can start with the Vula tribe. So what were your thoughts on them as now seeing them in the first episode here?
Well, we got to see probably the most of them because this is the tribe that ends up going to tribal. Spoiler alert! But yeah, I mean, this tribe, I felt like coming into it, I was like, they're at such a disadvantage because they just don't have the big physical players like the other two tribes do. So I feel like going into the episode, I was like, if I had to pick a tribe that was gonna probably go to tribal, it probably would be them. I mean, not knowing what the challenge was going to be, and this ended up being really, really close, but it's still, you could tell that they were the last ones to get up to the puzzle. So like they were starting out at a disadvantage, even though it ended up being really close. But yeah, I mean, I feel like Say was the biggest factor in this tribe, I would say, and just playing really hard from the very, very start. I mean, we saw that from the very, very beginning, she locked in a final three with Cedric and Justin. And then they brought in brought in Cedric into that group, and Say was kind of frustrated with the people that weren't playing at the very beginning, like Stephanie, and just kind of looking up at the stars, and not really playing the game from minute one, day one. And Say is like, I don't have time for this. I need to find an idol. I need to play this game. And she found people that she felt like she could trust and were going to be kind of having that same mentality. But look, I mean, she won this battle. I don't know that she's going to win the war in the end, but it made for an interesting episode for this tribe.
Oh yeah, definitely agree. I was actually watching it with some friends tonight and everyone was like, "Wow, she is very intense." Like she's very just like she knows she's there and wants to play and like trying to get all of that out. You can see in this episode you're like, "Wow, like she's really there to play," which I think might bite her in the butt and eventually, maybe sometime soon, but like right now it did work.
Yeah, I don't see this working out for her long term. I think that even her allies are going to realize in the next couple of episodes, I would guess that
Well, it seemed like that in the preview. They even mentioned her name.
I don't care about the
You don't trust the
preview.
preview?
That's always misleading.
Yeah.
Always that is I never trust the preview of Survivor. There are certain shows that you can trust it. Survivor's not one of
We'll
them.
see.
So
I
I
felt like
always
this
watch
episode
it for
though
some reason.
yeah, with this episode, the editing, I did feel like it led up to the who left. Like, I was,
It
like,
did.
paying attention, and, like, throughout the episode, I was like, "Okay, I feel like it's gonna be her."
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that they did a really good job this episode of making it make sense, the boot, but
Mhm.
also keeping in there the some suspicion that it could be Say. Like I
Yeah.
went into tribal like thinking if I had to pick I would say Stephanie, but I wouldn't be shocked if it ended up flipping and going over to Say. So
Yeah.
I think they did a really good job of yeah, like you said, kind of making it having the full episode lead up to what happened in the end, which it doesn't
Yes.
always do.
Yeah. But Say did get the idol this episode as well, so
Yeah.
we had a full story arc for her here. Um, but
I
she
loved that,
Yeah.
that Beware Advantage with the clues hidden all around camp. I
Mhm.
really, really liked that, and I thought that I can't remember honestly what the Beware well, I think each one is different, and I will get to it, but I do think that that also applies this season, that I don't think it's the exact same for all the camps, but um, I really like this one because it required, say, to go all around camp and find the different letters that corresponded with the numbers that were on her little puzzle thing in order to open up the idol. But it didn't originally, like, they saw those symbols and they're probably like, what is this? And I like that it only makes sense once you find that, and then once you kind of put all the pieces together, it ends up making a lot of sense, and you get the full picture of it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that this is a great way to do idols. I love it.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy that as well. Because then it also made you think, like, while you're watching the episode, like, "Oh, how would I solve that?" Because that was something that, like, we also got to see if, like, we could have thought that while she was trying to solve it, like, "Oh, there were those animals all painted different colors, like, that means this is what you're using for the clue here." Like, it was really smart, so shout out Survivor producers for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think back in the day, like, I just remember people would find idols like they were finding candy in a candy store. Like, they were just everywhere and so easy to find, and like I mean, it was ridiculous. But I always thought, like, make it harder for people, because people with Russell Hands, I hate to give him credit for anything, but like, he did kind of invent this idea of you can just find an idol without a clue. Like, why do you need the clues when they're just hidden in kind of the same types of places every season? And so this stops that from happening and requires you to actually earn your idol. And I think that that way when someone plays an idol correctly, it's like you earned that idol. And I cannot be upset that you were saving yourself with it. It wasn't like you just stumbled upon it. You might have stumbled upon the clue, but you had to work to actually get the idol. And so I always really, really love that and appreciate that for, the modern era of Survivor.
Yeah, I agree. I also for now with Say having it though, and then she had the help from obviously other members of her tribe, that kind of scares me though, knowing that she doesn't have it just to herself with that knowledge of that she found the idol there, which obviously we've seen a lot of people go out with idols. So I feel like I'm nervous that that's going to happen here with her just because like I feel like they were foreshadowing that in some way because they were giving it such an emphasis.
Yeah, I do think that the one thing that I would think, and I, could be wrong, but they are just coming off of watching Survivor 46. And if you remember in Survivor 46, there was a span of like 5 weeks in a row where everyone went home with their idol in their pockets. And I have to think that that is going to play a major impact on the way that they use or think about their idols. And the second that they have any inclination that they might have some votes on them, I think we're going to see these people play their idols. And that was also the case a bit in 47 because they, filmed right before 48, and so they were also coming off of watching 46, but I don't think 46 had ended by the time 47 started filming, whereas I think this season they've seen the full season of 46 before going out to film. So I would think that even more than last season, that's going to be a factor here.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see what happens there, but that is a really interesting point that like they did just come back from watching that and they don't want to have the same thing happen again most likely.
Right.
But now we can get more into the Siva tribe, so our orange tribe, and I feel like we got not as much with this tribe this episode, but I still feel like we got to know like the key players here, obviously, with David being the focus of the tribe here, which I feel like going into it, we kind of were like, yeah, he's gonna get some of that airtime, but he was annoying me already. So I'm like, how long is he gonna stay around? But he is really strong. So I feel like because of that strength, like he's gonna just soar his way through somewhat, but I don't want him to last forever because he's still like he's gonna get on my nerves. I know it.
Okay, and I actually think the opposite. So I
Really?
I think I'm going to end the season being obsessed with him.
Oh
Like,
my
I
god.
just feel like he is going to be so, like when I say obsessed, I mean, like, I would not want to live with him. Like, I don't think that I would want to have him around 24/7. But I think that he's just gonna be such, like, a unique character on Survivor that we probably like, if you go back 10, 15 years, he probably would have not been such a standout in the way that I think, like, we used to see more people like him. Like, I think of, like, Jesse Goddard from Big Brother, or, like, there's these people that are just, like, so full of themselves, but, like, it makes them such a character that, like, you can't look away because it's like, "Oh my god, you are a real person that exists in the same universe as me." And, like, I don't quite understand how that happens, but, like
Michael,
but
this is so funny. I'm just like internally was laughing that whole time. No, because it's funny to me because I'm like you're thinking of it and this is like related to reality TV obviously, but like I feel like Bravo into into Survivor is what
yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah. No, like, I think that he is, like, such a, like, Vanderpump Rules character or
Yeah.
someone like, something like that, where it's like, I would not want to live with you, but I'm really just enjoying the journey of watching. And I think that that is how I'm going to end the season with him. Cause like, so I heard like, I was listening to a podcast. They had like the Survivor premiere party earlier last week, I guess, or over the weekend maybe, where they showed the premiere episode and the whole cast, I think, or the vast majority of the cast was there. And someone was telling a story about David being there and that he was just like talking to some another Survivor alum and like they were competing in some sort of like mini challenge type thing, and he was kind of like razzing her, like making fun of her, blah blah blah, and someone went up to him and he was like, "Oh, so like you two know each other?" And he was like, "Oh no, I have never met her. What's her name?" And he's like, "Wait, you were like talking like that to her and you've never met her before?" Just like making fun of her and like in like a jokey way, but it's like
Yeah.
somebody who's like very familiar with you. And no, he had never met her before and didn't even know she was on the show. I don't even remember who it was. But it was just crazy. Like that's the type of person that he is, I think, where he just like will say whatever, like, was on his mind, like, just, like, treats them like, your best friends and, like, you just have all the confidence in the world to say anything, and I just feel like, yeah, that's a perfect example of, like, just who David is, seemingly.
Yeah. No, now that I'm thinking about it, also I was remembering back to his interview and hearing him say how he never watched any season really of Survivor. So I think that has a factor in this as well. It's just he's just like gonna be himself always and like doesn't understand, no, maybe not understand always the game of it, but it's just gonna be really fun to watch.
He didn't even know Jeff Probst's last name,
Yeah.
and, like, while he was doing the casting process. That's wild.
Yeah.
That is just wild. Like, that you were in the middle of casting for Survivor and you don't even know Jeff Probst's last name? Like, that is something that we don't see in the new era. That is like, in season 47, we were like, at the final tribal, they were having a whole conversation about like Ben Drebergen and like all these other like survivor winners and ranking the winners. Like, uh, that is something that like we just don't see anymore as somebody who just stumbled upon the show and doesn't know anything about it. And I feel like we see that a bit with Chrissy too, it seems like. Although from the episode she made it sound like she knew more about
Yeah.
Survivor and had been watching a long time, but then in her interview it was very clear that like maybe she had watched very early but has not seen anything since then really. So yeah, this is just a different cast, and I'm excited because I feel like it's going to be a totally different vibe than what we're used to from the past few years.
Yeah, I agree, which make this even more exciting. But premiere, because I feel like we are getting just like different kind of vibe from what we've been seeing. So that made
Yeah.
this just fun to watch. And seeing all the different tribes also made it exciting because you're like, wow, like these are like gonna be interesting. Like episodes I feel like coming up. Like sometimes in the early on episodes, I feel like they can kind of drag out sometimes. But in this episode, I never was like, okay, let's get to the next thing. Like I was always intrigued in what was going on.
Yeah, I usually am more of I like the post merge of Survivor better than the pre merge, just because I feel like you get so many more layers of dynamics going on in the post merge because like you have everybody's original tribe, and then if there was a swap, which we haven't seen in a while, like how is that going to play into things of like, are people going to be loyal to their original tribe or the swap tribe? Or but now it's in the new era, you don't even really need a swap for there to be interesting dynamics in the post merge because people don't just go with their original numbers and stick with that through the rest of the game. Like you see people really having like layers and layers and layers of strategy. And again, maybe we won't see that as much this year because they aren't as big super fans seemingly. But I still do think that this feels like a messy enough cast that even if it's not strategically like they're not doing it in a smart strategic way to kind of weave into different voting blocks and alliances. I think we're going to see it come up anyways just because it feels like it's probably going to be a pretty messy, like people are just going to not it's not going to be a handhold like everybody gets along season. I feel like we're going to see a lot of people get annoyed with each other, get frustrated, vote for personal reasons, vote people out. Like I just feel like we're gonna if we get certain people long enough, I think we're going to see that.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like very social already with the castmates. So it's like, well, there's definitely going to be some drama that comes up here because can't always be friends,
Yeah.
but especially
But getting back
this.
to the Siva tribe,
Oh yeah,
uh, we saw kind of a similar thing that we saw with the Vula, where with the Beware advantage and having the different colored symbols and numbers and figuring all that out. But we didn't see it play through in the Siva tribe with them figuring out what the symbols are, but we saw them noticing the symbols.
Mhm.
And but it felt a little bit different than with the Vula, which is what I was kind of talking about, was that the animals, like we got little animals, but they're all black. I don't think they have different colors, if I'm not mistaken. And so that to me, and we saw the rope that with
Yeah, the black rope.
letters behind, right behind
Yeah.
each black rope. And so that feels, I don't know exactly what all that means, but it feels different than what we got on the Vula tribe. So I'm interested to see what I'm assuming that this all obviously has to do with the beware advantage, but I'm interested to see kind of what that puzzle is as opposed to what we saw on the Vula tribe.
Yeah. No, me too. That's why it was interesting because we saw one complete, but then the other one not. So we'll have to continue that throughout, seeing maybe next episode they'll complete it or maybe not. We'll have to see how long it takes Siva to
Well,
find
it's
that.
interesting because yeah, because like David and Mitch noticed the symbols when they went on a walk, and then you would think that they would keep that to themselves and try to figure it out, but they just went and told everyone. David just went and told the entire tribe, "Here's what we found. Let's all look together." I mean, that's just like that is the mark of somebody who has never seen this show before and does not know the right strategy to keep things to yourself. He's just going to go blurt it out. And I appreciate it because, again, we never see that anymore. That's a very big brother thing where, like, they recruit every season and you see the same mistakes people make year after year. And normally, I appreciate on Survivor how the game is able to evolve because you get super fans, and so they're not making the same mistakes as before, and you have to like complicate the game, and you have to like kind of think next level strategies every season because people know what's happened in the past and what traps not to fall into. But I kind of like every so often you get a season where that's just not the case and people make a mistake that you would expect from like maybe one of the first 10 seasons of the show, but not a season 48. But I kind of like that you get certain players like that because it keeps it fun.
Oh yeah. Definitely. So maybe David will grow on me. Just felt like he was just getting just like kind of giving off arrogance, which I get like that maybe will like because his personality and that's just him. So it's like you have to appreciate him, and then I think once I appreciate him, then I'll understand it better and like not be annoyed.
Yeah, I'm watching at the same time. I'm watching Australian Survivor also, and there's a girl on Australian Survivor, Ali. I won't spoil anything from the season, really, but she is kind of a similar thing in that way, where she's kind of giving off a very condescending vibe to a lot of people. And when I first finished one of the latest episodes, I came off of it, like, so mad at Allie, and then when I sat with it for, like, 10 or 15 minutes, I was like, "Actually, she's kind of iconic." Like she's just such a wacky character and, like, doing things that are like, "Seriously? Like, you said this? Like, you're saying this to this person? I can't believe it." And it's like, at first, it's infuriating, but then it's like, "Oh my god," like, I that's amazing that that actually is a real thing that happened. So I kind of feel like I'm gonna feel the same way about David, and I could be very wrong and absolutely hate him, but right now that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting.
Yeah, thanks for the entertainment. Basically, it's like
Yeah,
what we're
yes,
getting
no,
good
look,
TV. Yeah,
we're talking about him for a long time, and that to me shows that that he's a character whether you love to hate him, or love him.
exactly. So we'll have to see how our opinions change or stay the same throughout the season with David. But any other call outs you want to make for your Siva tribe?
No, just that Charity and Camilla had the
Mhm.
conversation where Charity was asking Camilla, or they were talking about, I guess, like who they might target if they end up going to tribal. And Charity was saying that, oh, Kyle might have gotten an advantage on his journey that he's not telling us about. And so maybe I don't fully trust him. And maybe he's a good person to target to get rid of any possibility that he has something. And then Camilla, who had really bonded with Kyle, ends up totally ratting Charity out and goes and tells Kyle that Charity was talking about him. They end up talking to Chrissy and David about it, and kind of they all bond over the fact that they don't all really trust Charity. So that's something to definitely watch out for if they end up going to tribal soon. That Charity might be in a little bit of trouble there, it seems like.
Yeah. I felt that too. I mean, they were definitely setting that up for us, but like maybe next episode, if they go to tribal, like maybe that won't actually happen. But like, I feel like because they're planting the seeds right now of that charity against them, I feel like that could happen. But it was interesting to see overall those conversations. So we'll have to see how those pan out.
Yeah, no, I it definitely was there for a reason. I feel
Yeah.
like they showed us that for a reason, and whether that ends up actually being what plays out or not, we'll see. But I definitely think that that's something to remember for the future when we do see them go to tribal.
Yes, definitely. And I felt bad for Charity though, because I was like, well, I kind of liked her, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, and I mean, she is on your draft
I
team, I
know.
believe.
I've already lost
But
one.
I know, it was between the 2 that you had
Yeah.
on his tribe.
It's, like,
But
hard I feel like I'm rooting for people that I'm, like, maybe wouldn't have rooted for if I didn't have them on
yeah,
my draft team.
me too. Me too.
But
But, yeah, I think that, the Camilla versus Charity, I do think is going to be something that maintains whether everybody else remains on the side that we see them on right now. I do think that it feels like Charity versus Camilla will be potentially the story that we get from this tribe whenever they have to vote someone out.
yeah, agreed. Well, next up, we can talk more about Logi. So the Logi tribe is the purple tribe, and right off the bat, we see a lot of Thomas talking with pretty much everyone in the tribe, and then but he bonds first with Bianca, or maybe not. Well, we don't know the exact order, but we see him bonding with Bianca, and then we also see him bonding with the guys, and thought that he was getting along with them better than expected because like he's gay, and then the other guys are really straight guys. He made a funny joke about it. I was like, he's funny. So
I really
I
like
like
Thomas.
Thomas. What?
I really like Thomas too,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's so sweet.
No, I think that Thomas I was a little bit worried at first that he was going to kinda get the John Lovett treatment
Mhm.
and be like, someone that we're really excited to see and, like, is a big super fan of Survivor, but just maybe won't fit in with their tribe and then be an early out just because he kind of the odd one out. But it really feels like the total opposite is happening. Like, Thomas is the one getting along with everybody, he's a social butterfly. And him getting into the Skies Alliance reminds me so much of, and this is, I think, before your time of watching Big Brother, but it reminds me so much of Frankie Grande, where
Okay.
he ends up like in this all guys alliance one of the first days of the game and was not expecting to be in that at all. Like he thought he was going to work with the women and try to get out all the big guys, and then he ends up just kind of getting included in the all guys alliance, the bomb squad, with Derek and Cody and Caleb and all these people that you would never think he would be involved with, but he was one of the first HOHs, and they ended up including him with that, and the rest was history. But it kind of reminds me of that with Thomas, that he just kind of ends up in working with these guys, that Joe and Shaheen, and yeah, we'll see if it sticks. But they right now have the California Girls Alliance, so it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see if that is a thing that holds for the rest of the season, or the next few episodes at least.
Yeah. No, I thought that was good. I like the name of it too, which was it was funny. But and also
Yeah.
with a lot oh, sorry, what were you saying?
No, no, I was gonna say that they were debating whether to bring in Bianca or Eva as a fourth so that they have the numbers into their alliance. And I don't think we see them officially bring in either of them, but who do you think that they'll bring in between those two?
I think they would bring in oh shoot. That's a hard one because I feel like Thomas and Bianca are close, but then with
Joe and
Joe,
Eva.
yeah, Joe and Eva. So that's why I'm like, who would it be? Who gets chosen to be the 4th?
I think if I had to guess, and this is just a guess, I don't think that they'll bring either of them in officially. I think that what they'll do is Joe will kind of have Eva on the side,
Mm,
Thomas will have Bianca on the side. I think that Star is going to be the first one out of this tribe, if I had to guess. I think that that's a pretty easy prediction to make right now because it feels like the others are just all connected a lot closer to each other, and Star doesn't necessarily have a close connection that we've seen with anybody. And so I think
mhm.
everybody, that's kind of an easy consensus of being like, yeah, I guess I'm okay with Star going.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that happened with Bula when they, like, they didn't have like, Stephanie wasn't part of any
Yeah,
real group there, so, like, then that was the easy option, but
Mary was really the only one close with Stephanie, it felt like.
yeah, and so one person being close isn't gonna do you much.
Right, and they blindsided Mary, it seemed like
Yeah,
Mary was shocked at Tribal. I mean, we'll get to that, but
yeah,
it really felt like she was not expecting that.
yeah. But yeah, I like the Logi tribe, so I don't know. We'll have to see. We didn't get a ton of them this episode though, but also with Eva and Joe, we get to see their relationship form or their partnership. And I feel like that was really an impactful moment. I feel like they talked a lot about autism there, which I think was
Yeah.
good to bring awareness of it. Like we haven't seen anyone openly autistic on the show before, so I think that was really cool to see Eva share that with Joe and, like, them to have that special moment there.
That was a really, really nice moment, and I feel like Joe is never gonna betray Eva. I just
Yeah.
don't see it. If he knows that Eva's going home, he's not gonna vote for her. He will vote for somebody else just to, throw a vote, even if he knows it's not gonna do anything. But truly, I do not ever foresee him betraying Eva in any way.
Yeah. Agreed. So that's gonna be interesting if they have to go to tribal and everyone's like, "Gotta vote this way," and then maybe someone finds out that he didn't vote a certain way. Maybe that's gonna be biting him the best butt in the future, or maybe it's gonna be a great partnership for life or for the show.
Yeah, I think that honestly that is going to keep Eva from ever being voted out pre-merge because
Mhm.
that is knowing, like, if they know, like, let's say Joe says like, guys, I'm never going to vote for her. Like, in a tribe of 6, that actually means something. Like, that is one vote that you can't count on to get somebody out. Like, that, unless you are pretty confident
Mhm.
that there's 3 votes going your way, or 4 really, I really don't know that they would ever choose to get out Eva, and unless they absolutely had to, unless she was the last one left outside of the 3 of them. But yeah, I think that they would probably pick Bianca first, because even though Bianca and Thomas are close, I just don't think they have that deep of a connection that Joe and Eva have. And so I think that it would be easier to get Thomas to vote out Bianca if need be than it would be for Joe to vote out Eva.
Yeah. No, that's a good prediction. I can see that happening for sure because obviously we didn't get that deep of emotional connection yet with Thomas and Bianca, so it would make sense to keep Eva over Bianca
Yeah.
there. But now let's talk more about the immunity challenge. We obviously hinted to it already that Logi wins immunity and the reward, but then Siva wins the immunity there. So Vula, the Green Tribe, does lose and goes to the tribal council. And it was close because we had a puzzle up at the end there. And so I wasn't really sure who was gonna win there, but Green obviously, as we know, like going into it, as you were saying, like they did seem like the weaker tribe there. So it wasn't totally unexpected to see that happen. But what did you think about this first immunity challenge?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot closer than I thought it would be,
Mhm.
especially when we see that Vula was pretty far behind and starting the puzzle, but they caught up really, really quickly. So I wonder if they had the same amount of time as the other 2 tribes, like if they had been closer in starting the puzzle, whether that would have made a difference. But it felt like Vula's puzzle was like about to fall over. So I don't know how sturdy it was. Even if they had had more time, I feel like the whole puzzle might have just dropped and they would have had to start over.
Yeah.
But
No, it really didn't look steady there at all.
no. So I don't know if that would have made a difference, but if let's say it did stay up, it felt close. So I mean, even if they had had just like one more minute, I don't know if that would have, made a difference, but it certainly could have.
Yeah, maybe. But because Bula loses, they are going to tribal council. And as I also kind of alluded to, is that Stephanie, well, she was first working on the puzzle, but also wasn't part of anyone's alliance group there that we'd seen previous in episodes. So it seemed pretty obvious to me at first. But then when they were having different conversations, it was seeming like maybe it wasn't going to go for Stephanie. And like there were a lot of other potential people, or I mean, specifically say was talked about. So maybe like I was like, oh, maybe it was going to be her, but no, it still remains Stephanie. So what did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this was what I expected, but like I said before, I wouldn't have been shocked if the vote had flipped over to say. But no, I wasn't shocked that it ended up being Stephanie. Honestly, like if you remember in our draft episode, like I kind of, not to toot my own horn, but I did kind of predict that the women on this tribe were not going to get along. Like they felt
Mm.
like, especially Stephanie and Say, just felt like two complete opposites in so many ways, but yet they were similar in the sense that I feel like they both kind of wanted to be top dog. And I don't know that I even necessarily got that vibe from Stephanie so much as much as I thought I would, but definitely from Say. And you could tell that Stephanie was just everything about Stephanie was annoying. Say that like she wasn't playing the game as hard as she thought she should. That like she was talking about star signs and all this stuff, and Say just like could not care less and just wanted to talk about game 24/7. And that was never going to happen aligning with Stephanie. And so, Stephanie wanted to build those connections and bonds and, really appreciate the time that they had on the show as a group, and Say couldn't care less about that. So I just don't think that they were ever going to be able to work together in any way. And so it kind of just ended up having to be one of them, and Say ended up winning that battle.
Yes. But I mean that made sense from your prediction of it too, because are big personalities, but I think we didn't get to see it as much at Tribe. So maybe there were parts that we were missing that obviously parts were missing because editing has to shorten it down. But like there could have been more conversations we weren't seeing that were also causing them to not like each other. But because we knew Stephanie was going out, or obviously production knew Stephanie was going out, they didn't show every single thing, but just like she got booted first episode. So I was sad to
Yeah.
see that though she was on my draft team, but it's okay. There's a
Yeah.
lot of episodes to go. But so we also got to see in this premiere them share that for Survivor 50, Jeff came on during a almost commercial break, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is happening here?" And he
Wait, you
announced
didn't
that we
know
get.
about this? I guess you were in Italy when this all got announced.
No, I didn't know.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they announced it at that event that I was talking about,
Oh,
over, a few days ago.
I
That's
was
where
out of the
people
loop. Sorry, I was in Italy.
No, you're fine, but, yeah, no, this is exciting.
Yeah, no,
But
this was fun because I was like, "Wait," but I also well, the vote itself was announced now, like, what we were voting for, right? The vote like, the link didn't come out
we
until
knew
now.
what we were voting for, but the vote itself, like, started. So, we couldn't
Oh,
actually
gotcha.
vote until 8 o'clock Central Time.
Okay. Well, so if
So
you're listening to this right now, you probably like, right when we get release it, you can still vote. So go and vote
yes.
if you want to. But that was exciting to see that it was, like, an actual fan involvement with it because I didn't know this was happening. So from someone who didn't have the background that Michael had, I was like, "Wow, like,
And a
this
lot of
is."
fans probably didn't. Like, a lot of
Yeah,
people listening to this probably didn't have any idea that this was going to happen.
yeah.
Because, I would feel like I'm keyed in a lot more than the average person watching this to, like, the online Survivor community. So, I'm sure there were plenty of people that had no idea this was going to happen.
Yeah, no, which was cool to see. I mean, and hopefully it's gonna get a lot of engagement. I feel like it is, but the votes itself or the things that we're voting for, like two of them actually were interesting. I feel like the other two, I'm just like, I don't know if I really cared about that, but it was cool that they at least like involved us and wanted us to be part of what season 50 is gonna be like or set the tone of this such monumental season. So, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really like the idea of the viewers getting to vote on elements of the season, especially elements that actually matter and could affect the game. What I really like about it is that what it does is it makes the players going into the season not knowing what the viewers voted for.
Yeah.
So they don't know if there's going to be Final Four fire making going into the season. They don't know if they're going to get rice. They don't know if they're going to, different things that we're going to see because there's going to be more votes every week throughout the season. So there could be other elements of actual gameplay, like whether there are idols, whether there's other types of advantages, whether there's, I don't know, certain challenge that in the season or, different things like that that actually could affect strategy that people say there's a lot of pre-gaming usually with returnee seasons, and so not knowing different elements that are normally just kind of expected, whether we're going to have them, can kind of negate a little bit of that pre-gaming because you don't exactly know what game you're going into. So I really like that aspect of it. Obviously I love the fact that, I mean, season 50 is a monumental season, and so kind of doing this to like a fan appreciation type thing is always fun, and allowing us to have an impact on it is really cool. And you saw this in season 31 where the uh, viewers got to vote on the cast themselves, so this is kind of like the inverse of that, where the cast is built for us but we're picking out what's going to be in the game around them. So it's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
But
So
let's go
to
into
go
I
into the
yeah.
specifics. Oh,
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say, I think we should go
yeah.
into each one of them and kinda talk them through.
Yeah, so we got to choose the buff colors. So those I'll go from the least significant ones to the more significant
Yeah.
ones. The buff colors. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll vote for colors here. I mean, I did think the colors were cool, but like that one doesn't really matter. I don't know if you want to say what you voted for, but
I just wanna say that I'm annoyed, because
okay.
I thought, and I think a lot of people thought, that we were going to be able to pick whatever color combination we wanted, and they picked 3 color combinations that aren't exactly the most thrilling color combinations, like blue, orange, and green, light blue, orange, and purple, or green, red, and yellow. Now, most of these colors are colors that we get on Survivor regardless. Maybe not in that combination, but these are colors that we generally see most seasons. I wanted pink. I wanted silver. I wanted white. I wanted different colors that we don't get anymore. Give me something new.
I didn't think about that because I didn't know that, like, you knew we could pick colors, like, I just saw the options, so I was like, "Okay, I guess these are the things I gotta go with." I didn't know you were thinking you could actually choose all those colors.
Yeah.
That's
I said,
disappointing then.
yeah, like I want
Yeah.
either bright colors or something, like I thought I suggested gold and silver for the starting tribes, because I feel like that's
Mm.
a very like monumental, like it feels classy, it
Yeah.
feels like an anniversary season, like a big occasion. I don't know, I thought that would be cool, but like a lot of people I saw were like really wanting pink because we haven't gotten pink in a long time. And
I know there's a
I
whole
thought that would be
campaigning
cool.
for colors.
There was a whole campaign, yes, as there should be.
That's so funny. Okay, well, we'll have to see what we end up with,
Well, which one
but,
did you vote for?
I voted for the light blue, orange, and purple.
I did too.
Okay, so maybe that's the one that's getting chosen. We'll have to see. But also then we also see if you get to start with rice or no rice. which is interesting. So I voted for rice because I was like, I feel bad for them starving, so I want to feed them.
I also voted for rice, but not for that reason. I
Okay.
voted for rice because I feel like rice causes drama a lot of times. People dump
Okay.
out the rice. People eat too much rice. People, like there's different kind of like elements with the rice that we've seen in the past that can cause drama. And also, I just want them to be more energized because I feel like then we get more strategy, we get more like better challenge performance. Like when they have some energy, I feel like we get more from them than when they're just like totally out of it because they're
Yeah.
starving to death and like have no energy to like do anything.
Yeah, agreed. So I'm hoping they get to start with rice. And then this one, I feel like wasn't even gonna be doesn't need to be a vote. Like I feel like they were gonna do this regardless, but they put it in this anyways to say like, do you want there to be fire making a Final Four or regular vote? So obviously, who is gonna vote for a fire making? Like, why do they even need to
There's
put it in here?
people. There are people that vote for
Really?
fire making. I
I
think
can't
it's
believe
newer
that.
fans who don't
Okay.
really remember what it was like before fire making, and so they just kind of think of it as a part of the show, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there have been some cool moments from fire making, like just last season we saw Sam and Teeny, and that was so, up to the very last second, like go back and forth." But yeah, I think it's pretty much mostly newer fans that might vote for that, but I really hope that we get rid of it for a season at the very least.
Yes, I hope so too. And then, last but not least, in this questionnaire was that should we have a live reunion or an after show in Fiji? And so this one was very obvious. Who would vote for an after show in Fiji? Like we haven't had the live shows in so long, and it's much needed. I feel like this one was actually going to happen, so they didn't need to put this one in. But it was nice that you could actually have your voice heard for the saying that we want this live show. I think they did that so they could be like, okay, 2 million of you guys voted to be for us to be here, so we're here now. But it's like, okay, we knew you were gonna do that.
Listen, if you voted for an after show in Fiji, I just want to hear from you. Like, I just want to talk. DM me at michaelhorn23 on Twitter and michaelhorn.bsky.social or whatever on Blue Sky. I want to talk. I'm just curious. Like, why? Why would you vote for an after show in Fiji? There is no benefit to that. Like, it's literally just the show not wanting to pay for everybody to fly out to LA and have a whole studio and everything anymore. Like, there's no other reason why they don't do that anymore. So I don't get it. Why anyone would vote for the after show. I hate having to like right after somebody just lost $1 million. Two people just lost $1 million like 30 seconds ago, having to have them talk about their game and like think about it in any sort of constructive way. It just doesn't. We don't get the same results as like once they've watched the season back, once they've seen all the confessional interviews. It's like a housewives reunion. Like, you get some drama there potentially. Like you get people who are actually can like are reflective of their game. Even if they just gave them one night to sleep in a normal bed and like just like have some sort of like food in their system and being able to like look back at their game in some sort of like intelligent way, I feel like would be better than what we get now. But yeah, just vote for everybody wants to dress up and look pretty, and I want to see what they look like. I love being able to see like 1 second they're like all dirty and gross on the island, and then like the next second they're like have makeup on, and it's just like you have this moment of like, oh my god, that's what you look like normally. I
Yeah,
love that.
and
So
also is they don't know who actually won
yeah, and
when
that
they
like
go.
look, I would even be okay with them announcing the winner in Fiji and like having like a split second of like quick thoughts from the winner, quick thoughts from the others and the other two in the final three, like, and then having the live reunion, like, give us a tiny bit of both. I don't know, I don't care, but just have some sort of element of a live reunion in LA, and I'm happy.
Yeah, yeah. So I hope that that one's hopefully going to continue when they start it for season 50. Hopefully that will continue throughout the rest. But the other ones, if the rice and the fire making doesn't continue, that could be okay. But we need the live reunion to continue.
And that's what something that I actually thought about was That's gonna be really interesting to see how this vote for season 50 affects beyond season 50.
Mhm.
Because once we tell the show, "Hey, we don't want fire making anymore. We want a live reunion in LA. We don't want all these other advantages and whatever else we might be able to vote on in the future." Are they just gonna then completely ignore that after 50 and bring them all back and say, "Okay, I don't care that you just told us that we don't want this anymore. We're going to give it to you again." Like, do we think that they're going to do that, or will these votes potentially not only just affect 50, but affect beyond that as well?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it will affect it, but I don't know in what ways, like how influential they're gonna be, but I hope they are.
I hope so too. And I think, look, not all of them, like certain ones like the live after show or the live reunion versus the after show. I could see them going back to the after show just because they're like, "Hey, we're on budget. We can't necessarily afford to do a live reunion in LA every season anymore." But like maybe they figure out a way to make that feel more like an after show. Like I said, maybe they just do it like a day later or something and allow them to, get a little bit dressed up and put makeup on, have sleep for a night, like do something that makes it feel a little bit more like their live reunion, even if it's not. I don't know. I could see them maybe trying to figure out some way to make it more similar to what we're asking for without having to actually, shell out the budget for a whole live reunion every single season anymore. But certain elements of it, like, the rice versus no rice and the final four fire making and certain other elements, whatever we end up getting to vote on. I hope that as long as it's not something that like is budget wise why they're not doing it anymore every season, I hope that we get some changes for the next era of the show.
Yeah, for sure. So that will be exciting to see. But overall, what were your thoughts on this premiere? And we had a full 2 hour premiere, which is always exciting to see. But next week is an hour and a half, right?
I think so because Amazing Race comes back next
Oh
week.
yeah.
So I think yes. Last season, I feel like we got 2 hour episodes for maybe the first two or three, but
Yeah, that's what I
I
thought.
think because they're pairing it with Amazing Race again pretty early on, yeah, we're going to go back to 90 minutes, which is fine. I'm
Yeah.
perfectly okay with that.
Yeah. Just less of the dynamics on the tribes that we're maybe not gonna see in Tribal, but we'll still get to see a decent amount, I feel like, in the 90 minutes.
And I feel like we got to know, like you said, enough about each tribe and we saw enough from enough people in the premiere that we don't have to do a whole lot of like introductions in episode 2 as maybe we have in some seasons past. So I think that makes it so the 90 minutes should be perfectly enough.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm so excited to continue to watch this season, and we'll be sure to be chatting about this as much as we can because obviously there's a lot of shows going on right now with Love is Blind, Traders, Summer House, so we'll be back chatting about this pretty often though, and maybe every week. Just stay tuned. Just maybe subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and follow us on our Instagram and TikTok. And let's chat reality. But we're big Survivor fans over here, so hopefully you also enjoyed this episode, and will continue listening throughout the rest of the season.
Yes, we hope so. Yeah, you can tell we're big Survivor fans by our wardrobe if you're watching on video. I'm wearing my
Yes.
Survivor hoodie. Molly's wearing her season 44 or season 42 buff. So, yes, that is the show that really brought me into reality TV, Survivor and American Idol. So, yeah, it's the OG for me, and excited. I can't believe we're I say that I can't believe we're at season 48. That's just wild to me. But yeah, we're here and we will, yeah, be talking about it throughout the season. So stay tuned.
Yes. Thanks so much for listening.
Bye, everyone.